What's up guys, it's Drew Dillon with Project Lift, and on this week we're looking at the top 3 technical mistakes new lifters make. So if you're uncertain but you know something is going wrong in your lifts, this video is for you. 3 areas that we're really going to focus on are the heels, we're going to look at getting behind the bar, and ultimately missing the hip. So guys, if this video helps you, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe because new videos come out each week. But most important guys, pay it forward. If this video helps you, share it with somebody else that you know it'll help. Let's get right into it. All right guys, so the first thing that we have, the first technical issue is overloading the heels. Now, where do we see this at? Typically, we see it with athletes at the start position or the above the knee position, where they put all the weight towards their heels. They lean their whole system towards the heel, and that causes some problems. What does that do? So it makes it more difficult to be able to push with our legs like we need to off the start position, right? Which causes us to go around our knee. When we're above the knee, what it does when we've overloaded that heel is it sets us up that we're so far back that the only way we can prevent ourselves from stumbling backwards is by swinging our hip forward, and that creates a lot of horizontal movement in the lift, sending the bar forward. We got to go jump to go get it. Bottom of the line is it makes the lift more difficult. So how in the world do we fix it? Right? What's the cue? It's loading and pushing through the whole foot. When we're at that start position, it's allowing our weight emphasis to be closer to that ball of the foot. The quads engaged so we can drive our legs. That gets the knee out of the way and we're able to push ourselves straight up. When we're above the knee, we need to keep that full foot loaded. The emphasis of weight may be towards the heel, right? But our toes need to stay down. We need to be over that foot. And that allows us to be able to open up and drive up, creating vertical motion, right? For the bar to go up and us to go down. So the cue, guys, instead of heels, is loading that whole foot. Very often, heels comes from either being coached into it with the coach going, get in your heels, 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 or maybe you've read yourself into it. You could do a Google search and you'll find a ton about loading up the heels and the posterior chain. And typically that gets mixed in with powerlifting language. And the start for a powerlifting deadlift is completely different and does not apply to the Olympic lift. So keep that in mind, guys, and load your full foot and reap the benefits.
All right, guys, we're on to technical mistake number 2, which is getting behind the bar or back extension, right? They're kind of work together there. So where we typically see this is right off the start and right above the knee, where we see that crank into that low back, right? Where you want to go, ooh, we got to get ourselves rigid and tight and locked down, right? We see this extension to the back and we see ourselves pull that shoulder right behind the bar. And we see that right off that start position. We can also see that right above the knee. And as we're opening up, we want to start to pull back into that back, start to crank that on. Now, a lot of times this tends to be coached in, and it also gives us a tactile cue too sometimes, where it's like, okay, I'm set, right? It gives us that perception that we are set. If you hear the cue like chest up, big chest, what that is creating is this overextension of that back, which is pulling us behind the bar. Now, why does this matter? Chelsea, this feels like I'm set, I'm really engaged here. But what this leads to is shifting our weight into our heel too much, pulling around our knees, creating forward momentum off that hip or past that knee. We got to chase the bar, or we jump through and the bar loops behind us, right? So that creates a miss. What this can also create in a lifter is back problems as well, right? We are overemphasizing that tension in that low back, and it is shutting off a lot of vital components of our core that helps actually create a strong, healthy back. So if we get a lot of back pain after doing a heavy clean or even a squat program as well, a lot of times we're over exaggerating that, right? We're cranking into that low back, pulling behind that bar. Now, how do we fix this, right? Well, Chelsea, I'm doing exactly that. I'm pulling behind the bar. I see this curvature to my low back, and I have that pain. How the heck do we fix it? Well, it comes down really to foundation. Do we have that ability to strengthen our core? Do we understand what that means to have a strong core? And I don't just mean this abs, guys. You can have a six-pack and have a really weak core, right? What I'm talking about is true inner abdominal pressure, right? We're trying to actually use that pelvic floor, those obliques, right? Expanding that gentle outward through that core, creating that nice set position without getting into extension, which allows us to connect our entire body, allows us access to power and force through our legs that we wouldn't have if we're pulling behind or getting into that back extension. Now, how do we work on that? How do we strengthen that core without just doing more sit-ups or GHDs, right? That's exactly what we do in our Vital Strength class. We teach our athletes how to engage this core properly to support them in movement and especially into the Olympic lifts. Guys, we have a free week of Vital Strength every month. Check that out. Start to feel better, start to understand where we need to be in that position, in our start position, in that above the knee position with a strong core, and get ourselves out of that extension, let ourselves stay over the bar and create more force, power, and PRs.
All right, guys, technical issue number 3 is missing the hip. So what in the world is it? It's as we're opening up from above the knee, we go right past the hip. There's no contact. We miss the hip. Typically we get in the arms too soon as we're on our way either overhead for the snatch or to our chest with the clean. So what in the world does it do? So by missing the hip, basically it makes our lift dependent on momentum. It gives us a real clear ceiling to our lift that we can see, because after a certain point that you can't get any more momentum on this bar to heave it up there as you miss your hip, you're stuck. Plateau city. Not a good city to visit, in my opinion. But back to that. So how do we make that correction? So we're missing our hip. What do? A couple key components here. One, it's understanding the key positions. So if you're not very sure of your power position when the bar is sitting across your pubic bone up at the top of the position, you need to understand that position. You need to understand your above the knee position. You need to understand your start position, and you need to understand how you're moving between them, right? From the floor, your goal is to make it to the hip, right? From the floors to the hip. And very often we think from the floor, if I'm doing a snatch, I got to get this overhead. Or from the floor, if I'm doing a clean, I got to get this to my chest, right? Allowing ourselves to move through the movement to reach the hip for our legs to punch. And that's where that connection happens as a byproduct of the movement. So we're not going out there trying to get the bar to strike our hip. If we move well, then the bar will connect. So the correction, guys, it's one of those where it depends. It depends on your specific situation. You need to hone in on your positions and understand them, okay? You need to understand how to move between them. So if you're breaking down at the above the knee position, that's where you have to focus. If you're coming off the floor in a poor way that's ultimately causing you to miss the hip, that's where you need to focus. And really when it gets into that, guys, you know, it allows me to conclude this video. You know, when you look at these technical issues, when you look at getting set in the heel, when you look at getting behind the bar, when you look at missing the hip, there can be a lot of confusion, frustration. You know, what do? Can I figure out this on my own? I always encourage athletes, get a coach, right? You're investing this time. You have goals in the Olympic lifts. Get a coach, get feedback, get an assessment, and now you're off to the races, right? Chelsea mentioned Vital Strength. Vital Strength is a program that we use with our athletes to help build their foundation of movement, how their muscles work together, how we strengthen their core, and make it to where their legs, when they punch, they get full force from their legs into the bar. Something that doesn't always happen if you're in one of the bunches that can deadlift a lot more than you can clean. You know what I'm talking about, right? So guys, get a coach. We hope this helped. And good luck to you. New video coming out next week. See you then.